When we think about communication, we usually think about words, vocabulary, sentences, grammar, fluency. But long before we speak, we are already saying something with our body. The way we stand, how close we get, how we greet, how we take space or shrink from it. That is what people first read. And when we live in our native culture, this happens almost invisibly. We don't think about it. We can afford not to think about it because we already know how to move through it. But the moment we enter another culture, the body becomes conscious again. Suddenly we are asking ourselves, where do I put my hands? Do I make eye contact? Do I smile? Do I wait? Do I hug? Do I bow? Do I touch? Do I step back or do I step forward? The body goes from background to front stage. It becomes the first act of translation. At home, even if we misunderstand someone or we are misunderstood, we can clarify ourselves. We can adjust the moment. Abroad or in a language we don't yet inhabit, that adjustment is not immediate. So the body becomes cautious, alert, tuned to the signals we don't fully understand. We carry the feeling of being out of rhythm, not because we lack vocabulary, but because we haven't learned the choreography yet. I lived in Portugal, and for those who don't know me yet, I am Portuguese. And I lived in France for years, but I have also spent long periods in Brazil and in Thailand. And what I've learned through those moves is that the body learns a place before the mind does. Greetings alone already show how culture organizes distance, permission, and closeness. Often long before a single word is spoken. In Portugal, there is closeness. 2 kisses on the cheek, but proximity follows a gender pattern. Women greet everyone with a kiss or a hug if intimacy is already there. Men greet women the same way, but between men it is usually a handshake or a half a hug. It's not really a hug. Not because the bond is weaker, but because the masculinity is coded different in public space. Contact exists, but it's coded. Who initiates, when, and toward whom carries meaning. Then I moved to France, and there the greeting is a man and woman mixed interactions. All use the same form, the kiss on the cheek, but it's still social rather than intimate. It isn't affection, it is acknowledgement. Everyone greets everyone, man to woman, woman to woman, man to man. It is not intimacy, it is the social code of entry. It is not affection, it is acknowledgement. The body is saying, I see you and I place you here. Then in Brazil it shifts again. The body is not an instrument of caution, but of inclusion. Touch is not a reward of closeness. It is often a way of closeness is open. A hand on the arm, a palm on the back, a slight lean toward you. These gestures don't narrow the boundary, they soften it. And in Thailand, the body is not about distance or approach, but placement. Respect has a posture. Social space is vertical rather than horizontal. And the bow is not decoration. It is the recognition of order, or in relation or context to whom we are bowing. When someone bows, the body is saying, I know where we stand in connection to each other. 4 countries, 4 grammars of the body. Not better, not worse. Simply different ways of saying, I am here. Of course, this is a generalization based on personal observation. But this is an easy pattern to identify. And when you don't know the grammar yet, you just feel foreign, not in a language, but in your own skin. Displacement begins before the language or the first sentence is spoken. This is where people freeze, not because they don't know the word, but because they don't know yet how to enter the conversation. Before fluency, there is alignment. Before communication, there is legibility. Before speech, there is belonging or not. There is a moment I remember clearly, one of those experiences where you realize your body has already entered the culture before your mind understands what is happening. So this was the first time I traveled in Thailand. I went to a museum in Bangkok. I wasn't speaking Thai. I wasn't even trying to. I was just observing the unspoken rules. There was a guide taking us through the rooms, me, a Frenchman, and another Thai woman. And without thinking, I mirrored everything they did. The tone of my body followed theirs. It was not conscious. It was not a performance. It was just attunement. If they stood still, I stood still. If they lowered their head, I lowered mine. When we don't have the words, we borrow the choreography or those who do. So, in the last room, when both women bent down on their knees, I did the same. I didn't think, I didn't pause, I didn't analyze. My body reacted before my mind knew why. The Frenchman, he stayed behind on a chair because he was injured. But I followed the woman's posture completely. Only when they looked at me and said, "Oh, you are a Buddhist too," I realized that I wasn't just copying a gesture. I had entered a ritual. I was bowing to Buddha before even I knew it. What struck with me afterwards was not the religion dimension. It was the communication that happened before comprehension. I hadn't spoken a word, but I was already in conversation. I didn't belong, but I was participating, and my body was already inside the culture. And this is when I understood something that I later shaped in the way I teach and now I think about learning. However, this never fits inside a grammar exercise. What happened is that before we earn a voice, we learn how to be seen. The body is the first request for belonging. The words come after. This brings me back to Goffman, not as a doctrine, but as clarity. He described public life as a stage, and the body as the opening scene. Speech is not the beginning of communication. Visibility is. We don't get to use language until we show that we understand the scene we have entered. Abroad, the stage is unfamiliar, so we learn by imitation. Not because we lack of identity, but because belonging is first learned through observation. In our native world, we forget this because we are already legible, but abroad, the body becomes conscious again. We are beginners, not just in grammar, but in presence. So when people tell me, "Oh, I'm afraid to speak because I might make mistakes," I often think the fear didn't start with the sentence. It started when the body lost its choreography. We don't struggle with the vocabulary first. We struggle with the place. And once we understand that, everything softens. Language stops being a performance of correctness and becomes a negotiation of belonging. Not, do I know the right word, but can I exist here without losing face? Can I enter this space without friction? Because sometimes fluency is not about saying something well. It is about being able to be someone in this place. In the next episode, I will stay with the body a little bit longer and move into what means to carry foreigners even when the language finally arrives, because fluency doesn't erase difference. It just teaches us how to live with it. Thank you for listening to Travel Voice, reflections of movement, language, and what happens in the space between them. See you soon.